Great, thank you. So just to kind of chime in, definitely a great organization, does a lot for our students, a lot for our schools, not just athletically, but in a lot of different areas. So if you have any opportunities, or I would trust, would like sure they put them up. Additionally, prior to kind of going through the presentation, just to address a couple of people, we have our assistant principal, Jody Epps here. She's our assistant principal of teaching and learning. She's been instrumental with this. She'll jump up and talk a little bit about things. Jeff Rose, our coordinator of testing and assessment, is here as well to speak about some of the metric things. And then our district director of student services, Kelly Chase, here in case there are any questions about special education or things of that nature. Okay. So that being said, to start the presentation and just speak about the why. So if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? There's things that are going really well in our high school. We're high performing on testing and metrics. We got our climate and culture results back today from a survey, that Survey Works thing that we sent out earlier in the fall. They came back. I'm super happy about what it looks like. There's definitely things to work on in regards specifically to student engagement, belonging, and things of that nature. But overall, we're doing a really nice job, I think, with building the climate and culture of the space. And it's something that I know we focus on a lot. So with all those things said, why does it matter? Why are we changing anything? Well, there's a couple of major reasons why we really had to address the program. The first one up here is that primary focus on English and mathematics. All right. It's not just from a testing perspective, but if we're doing our due diligence, I think as an administrative team, other than number one, student safety, number two, making sure that students have a memorable and worthwhile experience here. When we start talking about the academic expectations of what we're doing here at Portsmouth High School, it's really, really important that we focus in on English and mathematics, making sure that regardless of what our kids are doing when they leave here, they're going to be set up for success, that they're going to be able to write at a high quality level, they're able to speak at a high quality level, they're able to do mathematics, whether it's practical mathematics that they might use on the daily or more, sophisticated abstract mathematics that they might need at their college, if that's the direction that they go. So we really want to focus in on all things. Science is important. Career and technical education, really important. Physical education, my background, really important. But I think if we're really doing the best service of our kids, the primary focus needs to be on English and mathematics. And then everything else, although super important, has to fall in line behind those two major subject areas. So this new proposal and kind of where we're going with the schedule for next year really places an emphasis on English and mathematics. The second thing that we have up here are study halls. So it's an unpopular opinion, but this is 100% in Rhode Island law. It was passed in 2018. You're not allowed to have study halls and count them for instructional minutes in a high school. So historically, over the last, I would say 10 years, high schools around the state have started to do away with their study halls. I know when I was at Tiverton High School way back in like 2022, or 2002, sorry. I'm actually older than three. So anyways, but when I was back there, we had like senior lounge. And a lot of us probably had that, where it was like if you were a high performer, you got more senior lounges. You get to chill next to like the vending machine. You kind of get to mess around with your friends, kind of slip out the back door sometimes. Like senior lounge is no longer a thing. It hasn't been for 10 years. The state then started looking at study halls and how kids were spending time in school during those instructional minutes, is the word they keep hearing. And what they've essentially said as of 2018 was your instructional minutes have to be spent on teaching and learning. And they don't consider things like lunch or recess or study halls teaching and learning. So the state says you can have those, but they don't count towards your daily 330 minutes. One of the things is at Portsmouth, we've been doing that. So we count that towards our instructional minutes, and essentially the clock ran out on us, that we got called on it, that doesn't count. Your kids technically aren't going to school for 330 minutes a day. They're going 330 minus the 86 that they set for study hall. You're not in compliance. And that was part of all the gobbledygook of last year with half days and finals and half days mid-years. It's kind of carried over this year. So the state's really cracking down on those 330 minutes and how we're spending them. So we have to make a shift because study halls are an essential component. We call them learning centers to our learning environment. So a big reason why we're looking at this as well, if we're getting rid of those, what fills the void? What fills the gap? What can we do that's meaningful for kids, doesn't put too much stress or strain on teachers or students, and kind of still hangs on to the important pieces of learning centers that we think we need to hang on to? So that being said, that leads us to the first component of our shifts, which is bell schedules. So this year, students, we have a block schedule. All right, there's about approximately 79 minutes per period. There's 2 days, A and B. We have advisory periods for almost a half hour every day. 3 lunches. You get the feel for it. You're probably familiar with this with your students coming to school. So they essentially see every class every other day. Well, what this essentially does for us is next school year, we don't have the capacity to fill those periods that way without having learning centers capacity that we do. But a big thing that was important for us is not dropping down to 7 periods a day, because then that takes away learning opportunities for kids. That would mean less opportunities for electives, less class variation for different kids to explore their interest. So one of the big things when we looked at next year's schedule is we really wanted to keep 8 classes. So the kids had maximum opportunity to experience different classes and explore their interests. But at the same time, our teaching faculty and capacity, without those study halls, we don't have enough people to be able to do that in a way that really kind of speaks to those interests like we want to do. So we tried to find a happy medium, and we actually have, it looks like a lot. Trust me, the kids will get it quicker probably than most of us, me included. But the idea is that next year, instead of having these rotating days of A, B, A, B, A, B, we're going to have days that are anchored to the week. So Monday will always be the same looking schedule. Tuesdays will be the same schedule. Wednesdays, and that's where you can see if you count the columns, you've got 5 different days there. The Monday, every class meets. They meet for about 40 minutes, which is very similar to like if you were in like a waterfall schedule, it offered 7 periods a day. Generally those classes like 40 minutes, 50 minutes. The idea is that that class day will set up things for the week for kids. They'll see every one of their teachers on that Monday. They'll talk about maybe what's going on throughout the week, what they can expect, if they have a test coming up, those types of things. But it'll be for a shorter while. And then on that Tuesday, you'll notice there's the odd number periods with a little bit of a longer advisory period, followed by the even number periods. And then you have that rotation of even, odd, even, odd. So it kind of doesn't lose the flavor of what we have with an A-B schedule, but this gets anchored to, like I said, those days of the week. So kids know what to expect. Over time, they'll definitely get more comfort in regards to remembering what periods and what days. It might take a little bit of a learning curve to start, but this will give them that same opportunity for long periods. Because one of the things in having conversations with kids and teachers and community members through our parent organization was that the town seems to love the block. For the vast majority, kids wanted that long period to be able to, whether it's having English class, have a math class, have a painting class, whatever. They didn't really want to go back to like a 45-minute deal, which is what we kind of looked at. So we kept the block schedule. Periods actually get a little bit longer, better for some, not for others. Some students don't like that, but trying to kind of take out that holistic approach of surveying. You can see what our bell schedule may look like next year, okay? The reason for the varied times for advisory, 25 minutes this year seems just like a little bit too much. Every day, you know, after the first 10 minutes, we find kids are losing steam. And then what that turns into is some hallway, you know, just misbehaviors, the bathroom, hanging out in the bathroom, going and trying to, you know, hang out with your friends in their advisory, and maybe nobody know when you are. So I think having those 25-minute advisories to do like assemblies and things of that nature is really important. But then for the most part, having those 10 minutes as well for teachers just to touch base with their kids, continue to build relationships, maybe for the kids to take a breath, you know, as they're going throughout their day, just kind of like pause after that first morning class, because 86 minutes is a long time, you know, and then kind of reset themselves to be able to get through the rest of the day. So that being said, that gives you a feel for our bail schedule. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Nebbs right now. She's going to talk a little bit about what Patriot Block is, and then Mr. Rose is going to talk a little bit about how we're going to determine those. All right, cool. There you go.
Hi, everyone. So Patriot Block, you know, what is the objective of it? What are we doing? I think Dr. Heath set the premise of it, but essentially these are our objectives with Patriot Block. So again, given all the givens and thinking about what are our resources, how are we going to best utilize those resources to meet students' needs and really maximize this time. We thought it was important to provide in-school personalized intervention opportunities in math and literacy. So essentially what that means is what we're looking for are students who particularly are demonstrating gaps in math and or reading particularly, and looking at ways to address those gaps. And really it's a personalized approach, because while a student might be scoring below grade level in either one of those areas, it could be for a different reason. So the idea of intervention is that it is targeted, it is focused, and that they're getting the coaching that they need through those skill gaps so that they can better access the content within their other academic courses. So that's the first goal. The second goal is to foster effective study habits. So one of the things about Learning Center is that it did provide the opportunity for students to get their coursework done, study for a test. So we wanted to maintain some of that, but enhance it by making sure that the time is spent focused on effective study habits. and that if we're going to use it and it's going to be considered instructional minutes, how can we make sure that kids are finding those strategies and making them useful so that they're not only doing their homework, but they're prioritizing their learning tasks and doing them, getting them done in an effective order, and or studying, but learning how to study effectively. So academic intervention is the first component here. Okay, so this would be for students who are demonstrating a need and demonstrating that they, are below proficiency in either math, reading, or writing. And the scores, we're going to use a variety of measures for this. We all know that one metric isn't enough to really determine that there's learning gaps and or to give us the information that we need to really drill down to what skills and strategies a student should focus on. So if you look here, we have a variety of measures that we'll be using from state testing, SAT, PSAT, PSAT 9, to our district assessment, which is STAR. Kids have been taking that since kindergarten in this district, so we do have that district level screener, and then also drilling down to their performance on their course assessments and even just the qualitative input that we can get from teachers. So as we are starting to run that data and run a matrix for determining these, we are also going to be talking to teachers and helping to identify who is in need of this.
So if my student is not proficient in math and or ELA, as based on those metrics. So we do have some students that aren't meeting the proficiency benchmarks on the SAT or the PSAT. So Patriot Block is designed to support those students in closing those gaps and achieving the best that they can. So the Patriot Block structure, the periods are about 80 minutes, so it won't be dedicated intervention time for the entire 80 minutes, but the first 40 minutes of that block will be spent on intervention and enrichment. The phrase that RIDE uses right now is acceleration. All students can use acceleration, whether you're at grade level, above, or behind, we can all use that time to accelerate and get more. So that's really what I want to kind of focus on this, is like this is our acceleration blocks. All students can use acceleration. So the intervention and enrichment that we'll be doing is on a self-paced online intervention platform that will speak with the screening data that we have. So we'll be using our screening data to identify those gaps and then using that information to tailor the platform for the students to meet their individual needs. And this will happen in small groups and in one-to-one intervention with the teacher in the building acting as an academic coach. So the teachers in the building will be working in small groups with students, coaching them through either their math or their reading goals based on the data that we have. And we understand that that's a lot. So we also want to keep some element of our learning center, which has been such a pivotal piece of our structure and our culture here. So there will also be 40 minutes of self-directed learning. So while some of that time is dedicated to closing those gaps, identifying them and fixing them, it's also going to be an opportunity for kids to set some goals, do some task prioritization with that teacher acting in the role of an academic coach, and then also structured independent work time for studying and coursework completion. We know our students have a lot on their plate. We know there's a lot of extracurriculars here at Portsmouth, and we have students that take advantage of a lot of those opportunities. So we still want to hold on to some time in the body of the day for students to take care of that work while also satisfying the RIDE regulations. And some additional considerations, Patriot Block does have quarterly progress monitoring. So there will be check-ins to see how students are doing, what kind of progress are they making. And that progress is going to be used or measured with our district and national diagnostic tools. As mentioned earlier, the SAT, PSAT, as well as the STAR assessment. These courses are going to be designed as a semester course. So at the half-year point, students can move through the different intervention opportunities or the different enrichment opportunities that we'll be offering. And this is based on their progress. The exception to this is going to be students receiving specially designed instruction as per their IEP. So those students will remain in a Patriot Block to receive that STI that they're entitled to. There will be a benefit to students for taking this that they don't have with a regular learning center. They will get credit for this towards graduation. So each semester that they're in, they will receive a 0.5 pass-fail credit, and to earn the credit, they just need to be working and making some progress. So we're hoping that this will incentivize it, honor the kids' work, and give them an opportunity to move. And speaking of special education, I'm going to pass it back to Ms. Ness.
So a little bit on special education. We are actually running another community forum next week, next Thursday, to speak specifically to some of the programmatic changes that we're making in special education. This is one of them, and Patriot Block is a part of that shift. But there will be more information on that, and you should be receiving a letter soon if you have a student with an IEP. But specifically to Patriot Block, in designing this model for Patriot Block, and in evaluating our special ed programming, it made more sense and it seemed like a better fit for specially designed instruction that students are entitled to by their IEPs. Seemed like a better fit within an intervention framework, because SDI is personalized and individualized, so is intervention. As opposed to trying to provide SDI or students receiving SDI in a general education model where they are also trying to access the curriculum and they're also trying to learn Algebra 1 or English 9 or geometry at that level. And so this kind of separates the specially designed instruction that's inherent in students' IEPs and allows for them to get that personalized instruction they need within that model and also in a smaller group. So with our Patriot Block, we are looking at trying to create smaller ratios to provide that really close small group instruction. Patriot Block, for that purpose as well, will be co-taught. So there will be, in addition to a special educator delivering specially designed instruction, there will also be a general education academic coach who's helping to support the work of intervention and SDI. I think, again, related to Patriot Block specifically, that's where special education falls in. Again, a little more other programmatic changes, thinking about how we're going to address how to support students in the general ed setting without a special educator. We have some other things in the work, including a student support center for students with IEPs and other opportunities to support them otherwise as well.
Cool. So almost wrapping up. Thank you, Ms. Neves and Mr. Rose. The big thing to kind of go over is everything that we've spoken about thus far relates to if students aren't meeting those specific proficiency platforms. And just to be 100% honest, we got the SAT, PSAT data in as our first kind of measure of that. There's a lot. There's a lot of students that are gapped in either English or math or both. And there are varying levels of gaps that exist. There are also a significant number of students, I would say probably about a third of the school, that don't have proficiency problems, that are meeting those benchmarks based on at least what the PSAT and SAT are saying. We obviously don't have this year's grades yet, kind of in totality. But we have to consider that as well, right? Because I think the big piece of this that I want to kind of display, I don't want to sit kids in front of a computer and have them go, oh my gosh, this is awful. You know, it's not meant to be drudgery at all in any way, shape, or form. We want to make it as meaningful and as engaging as we can with students. And that's one of the big reasons why we're not just plopping them in front of a computer. They're going to be in these classrooms with content area specialists. So it's not like, you know, Jaden, my son, is going to be on the computer typing away, you know, learning English from a computer. It's going to be an English teacher in the room. Like, hey, Jaden, how's it going? Like, you know, hey, I saw your grades from English class. Like, what happened last week? Like, this individual is supposed to be interacting with Jaden about his English, knowing and having that background knowledge that not only does Jaden struggle in English, but maybe, you know, long prompts are really where he's showing a deficit. So that teacher is going to know what help Jaden needs to like be able to get to that level that he needs to be at grade level and doing that type of work that he needs to be doing for the next step. So that being said, what happens when students don't demonstrate gaps? Well, in order to kind of make the best use of their academic time, they have two options. All right? Students that aren't demonstrating gaps can either take an 8th class. So what I mean by that is this Patriot Block thing, and it's really, really important to get this across to people in a transparent and clear way. It's not going to be optional. Like, students are going to have to take this as part of their academic program. So if you're demonstrating a gap and you're not performing proficiency in English, you'll be assigned an intervention block, a Patriot Block, to help raise up those skills. Because we're, for lack of better terms, forcing that on kids, I can't do that to the student and not give them credit for that. And that's some of what Mr. Rose was talking about. That's just not fair, and that detracts from their ability to graduate in 4 years. They have to receive academic credit if I'm asking them, do you need, or telling them essentially, you need to take this work. If a student is demonstrating that they don't need that extra help and support, that's where the 8th class option comes in, where you can take a Patriot Block, or we have that litany of other elective coursework, that's not good, other coursework that we offer, and essentially you can take that painting class, take that guitar class, take those things. Students, all students, regardless if they have a Patriot Block or not, will have access to those classes. It's just, again, keeping in mind, if we have 8 periods in a day, right, then whatever we add to that schedule is going to decrease their ability to take a class by 1. So if a student demonstrates they don't need that extra support, take an 8th class would be the first suggestion to them. Right now, a lot of those students for us are taking learning centers, which is 86 minutes of sitting in a room, maybe watching Netflix, maybe studying and making good use of the time, but it varies drastically. The second component is those students can take a Patriot block. We're not going to block them out of these intervention opportunities. Well, what does that student do? They'll be in there doing things like, depending on their grade level, test preparation. So they'll be working through these similar online platforms with teachers working on, everybody needs improvement in English and math in some capacity, even our top performing students. And we'll be able to identify their gaps as well. Even if the test, quote unquote, says that they're meeting proficiency, there's still areas that are not as strong as others for those students that will be targeting those opportunities. The other thing that we'll be offering through those Patriot blocks, which will be similar in format, with the 40 minutes of intervention or targeted, experience and 40 minutes of your more learning center type of activity. They'll be offered opportunities to do things like work at a tech desk in the library, or maybe if they're a high performer in world language, they can be a tutor for some of our younger world language students. So we're still putting a little bit of that programming together as we kind of close on the end of the year. But those students, like I said, that are in the high flyer category, it makes no sense to give them, certain levels of intervention if they're demonstrating that they're already knocking it out of the park there. I want to be clear, it's not meant to be a punishment to students not meeting the line. It's designed to say, we have to identify that you're not at grade level or you're not meeting the benchmark that you need to meet, and that gets right back to our first slide. We as educators need to do our job then to get that student there, right? And that's really what we're taking seriously, okay? So that kind of concludes the presentation. We were going to, just so you're aware, offer coffee hours as well. So it's a lot to take in right now. That's part of the reason why we're recording and we'll be sending this out for individuals to kind of look and reassess. Additionally, we can send the slide deck out. We can definitely take some questions now if anybody has anything on the tip of their tongue or commentary. But again, there'll be opportunities after tonight that you'll be offered to maybe come to the building, or even there's enough people here where if you send an email directly to one of us, Ms. Nebbs, Mr. Rose, or myself, we'd be happy to meet with you and go over questions, comments, concerns, suggestions. Definitely open to all of it because it's uncharted territory for us. In-school intervention is something that's like a hot button topic in education right now, but a lot of schools really haven't had much success, in all transparency, implementing that in the school day without having kids come after. So the hope is that we can really find the magic sauce to do best by our kids here in town, and I want to make sure that we're taking everybody's voice into account